and first, thank you for like coming here at this like very sunny day. I guess a lot of people would rather to be outside, but like for this like a very like Taiwanese specific topic. But yeah, like I hope all of you found this topic interesting, and today we're also very happy to have the panelists in this. Like they do a lot of research and also artwork in this field. I will later like let them introduce themselves. But okay, we have one more person joining us, I think. Firstly about me, so my name is Yong, and you can also call me Ling Rong. I'm from Taiwan originally, but I'm living in Germany for about 8 years already, so I'm also a member of the Impression Taiwan, which is the association who are organizing this event, and also the film festival. I guess a lot of you know about the film festival, and that's how we came here. And we have the film festival from yesterday on till Wednesday, so feel free to check out some films, also all the films from Taiwan. And in the film festival this year, the main thing is also about women's experience in Taiwan. So you will see a lot of movie and shorts about like sort of women's topic and also like women's life experience. And that's also how we kind of came to this idea of we could organize the panel talk on this issue. Today the topic we have is basically called the loneliness economy and hostess industry in Taiwan. And we will be focusing on women's labor in these industries and also like their life experience and what are the popular discourse. And this is an event which, of course, is a panel talk which we will first spend some time to walk you into this industry, how it works and how their life is like. But afterward, we will have like a half-hour Q&A session. So feel free to shoot all your questions and things you are interested in. And afterwards, you're also welcome to stay a bit with us to continue to chat. And now I will pass the mic to my wonderful panelists. You can start with Yijie.
So hello, I'm Yijie, and I'm artist based in Berlin, and my projects critically engage with the gender issues and Xenophone societies through my artistic research, and about the so-called loneliness economy. And I use methodologies such as structured interviews, which means I have interviewed like 10 women in the field. Includes workers and audience, like platform users, and also as covered participant observation, which means I also work as voice call companion and also voice live streamer for about a year. And this 10 women interviews with the 10 women is framed as a podcast 15 episodic podcast. And today my co-producers also here, so shout out to you, Lian. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Yiling. I am from sociological background, so I did sociology for research, but primarily on feminist theories. And my last research, which is my master's thesis, I did particularly an empirical study on the hostess industry in Taiwan. So what I did was I did extensive interviews with the hostesses, and then I did a narrative analysis on all the things they told me. So yeah, this is what I hope to contribute to today's conversation with this background.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Yeah, it's on. Sorry. So we will start, of course, with the basic questions about definitions, because I think a lot of people actually don't really know much about this work of life. So first is maybe question to Yijie is, what do you mean with loneliness economy? So, and also what do actually like the voice service and the live streamers do in their job?
So loneliness economies does not have a really clear definitions, and it's really broad because it's a phenomenon-driven concept, also like trend-orientated, and it will change when the market change. but I will narrow it down. So literally, we can refer it to the economic activities that arise to meet the need to ward off loneliness. And my research narrows down to the lonely economies for lonely single people, and with a virtual perspective, which means like online services like voice call companion, video call companion, game companion, video and voice live streams, etc. And yeah, what do they do? So voice call companions is like this service you can pay and call to chat with people, voice call, and then live stream is basically they would have streaming and the audience or listeners can interact in the live stream room with chat, so typing. Yeah, and maybe like this first.
Yes, thank you. Then I will actually turn to Yiming also to tell us what does that mean with like the hostess culture and also like the companion industry.
Yeah. So I think compared to the live streamer industry, the hostess industry is a little bit like relatively long, with a long history. So it comes from like already, I think also the Japanese time when they have this piano bar. So long story short, for those of you who don't know what it is, I hope you know a little bit about these Asian karaoke places. So it's not really the karaoke bar where they have this open mic, but rather the place where there are a lot of rooms. And then as a group of friends, you can go book a room, and yeah, you basically have a private room to sing in there, to drink, have fun in the room. And I hope you know a little bit about this operation. And imagine this exact same operation, but just with a little bit fancier decoration in the place. And the only differences is there are hostesses. That's how it's called, hostess. We can also think of it as hostess karaoke places. And the clients could go and basically choose from the hostesses, so imagine them as waitresses, to sit next to them in the karaoke room, to accompany them through the night, singing together, have games, dice games together, and chat with them, basically. So yeah, just to give a brief idea about what hostess karaoke bar is, and this is what I mean with hostess industry. And a little bit on the guest base. So they are very often middle-aged businessmen who go together as part of their after-work event. And this is a very common practice in Taiwan. They go with their business partners or potential business partners to this kind of hostess bars to formulate some sort of network, to potentially have business deals with each other. Of course, there are also clients who are not business oriented, so young office workers who go because they feel lonely, they want some companies, they want to feel love, so to speak. And also there are influential people like politicians, famous singers who are also like a quite common clients for this kind of fancy place. And as you can imagine, the cost is high. And yeah, I think that would be a brief idea for this hostess industry.
Thank you so much. I think like it's very interesting also to see like I think it sounds like there's a lot of similarity also in this walk of life, but you could see one is like something with much longer tradition. And the other one is the kind of more like in the virtual space and in the kind of, we can say, the digital age, how it developed into like a new industry. So I think maybe like what we see in the public discourse about this topic, there's always this kind of idea come to people's mind. I could even share like sort of I recently saw the government's advertisement against scamming. And they basically just make a comic about how like people get scammed by live streamers, and yeah, like it's such a like public discourse about this is like easy money. This is sort of women just need to be pretty and chat with people, and then they can earn a lot of money, no matter if it's in like a virtual space or on site. So I think this is something I think a lot of people were also interested in. It's like sort of, what do you think this is easy money? And also, do you think like if it is like a hard job, how it actually looks like? Yeah, I think we will first give it to Ying.
Yeah. So yeah, as Lingrong said, there is this public discourse on how in this line of works, it's some sort of quick, easy money. And yeah, basically on the hostesses, the discourse are often just sit there and be pretty and you earn a lot of money just, yeah, in that one night. Well, I interviewed these hostesses and I realized it's so much more complicated than that. So as you can imagine, this place is not like, it's basically what if you ask them what they're selling actually. They're selling perceived attention, right? And they're also on a very deep level, they're selling perceived love. So I have brought with me some quotes from my interviewees. I'm just gonna read this one paragraph, so to give you a brief idea. So here it goes. I think there are people here so this is from one of the interviewees when I asked them, what do you think the clients are looking for in the bar? She said, I think there are people here who may be here to talk business, and there are people who just simply want to come here and feel loved. So as you can see, the work involves encouraging and facilitating the client's emotional relief. The other interviewee said, they come here to be taken care of, to have someone to talk to express themselves, to say things that they normally wouldn't dare to say, or things they cannot discuss in the daytime, in family, with their friends. They turn to the Hostess Club to find this kind of relief. There is the presence of these kind of women, referring to the hostesses, with whom they can talk. So you already see this kind of therapeutic aspects of this work. So yeah, I think I'll stop here, and later I want to talk a little bit more into this emotional labor these hostesses are providing. But maybe I'll pass the mic to EJ for us to also see how things look like from live streamers.
So maybe I can add something that the similarities to Hostess with the live streamers. There's this kind of live stream which calls IRL live stream, in real life live stream. So basically through the streaming, you invited your audience or listeners into your life, and through the activities you normally do, like cooking or eating or shopping, they bring camera with them, or like doing yoga or singing, playing guitar. And in this kind of live stream, the characteristic is like you really have to have a lot of interactions with your audience. So it's basically like providing companionship is the most important part of this kind of live stream. And in this kind of live stream also, it's the kind of mainstream live stream we talk about in the Cinephone societies. And yeah, most of the live streamers are female. This part is really similar to Hostess. Yeah, it's I would say almost like 90% is female.
Yeah, like I think it sounds like for both of you, this sounds like there's a lot of emotional laboring like in this field. I actually wonder if you want to like continue to elaborate on that.
So I could imagine, so as you all could imagine, for both lines of work, there is kind of a similar context of like sexualized non-sex labor, right? Basically this whole industry, selling perceived attention and love, it's kind of stepping into this gray area. And I'm wondering, Ije, also if you, like similar to hostesses, if in this line of work, they are also selling some sort of like attention or like fulfilling the kind of desire needs of the clients, and also some sort of romance. If this is also the case in live streamer industry.
So maybe this part I could share more about the voice call companion, because it's more one-to-one interactions with the clients. And most of the needs from the clients, I would say almost like 1/3 of the needs is quite sexualized, because a lot of men want to have phone sex with the companion, and if not really phone sex, and they want to talk about sex and have sexual tension in the talk. And other reasons why they call is also have this romance perspective, like they want to request your personal contact, want to ask out for dates in real life. And the other reasons why they call, some people just call because they are boring, they want to kill time. But a lot of also they would complain about their life, complain about their work life, and also maybe share about their love life. And as a companion, you don't really have this therapy background, but you need to have this emotional intelligence to interact with the clients and to deal with these heavy emotions they are dumping on you. And also some of the clients, they have this mindset that I'm paying money, so I can do whatever I want. So some of them are really rude towards you, and also there's people who have mental illness that maybe they're not really good at interact with people in real life, and they want to talk with someone, and they really, sometimes they have like manipulation or blackmail, emotional blackmail. And all this requires a lot of emotional labor, like how you can reject or how to interact, actually.
Yeah. Thank you. So I heard so much about, like, I just find it interesting because in my line of research, I also heard so much about these aspects on emotional labor, which is kind of a common term now used by so many people. But I think maybe I can bring a little bit like background into this specific term, because it actually comes from a very specific sociologist called Arlie Hochschild, and she actually brought this term, and here is actually the definition. So we often think of emotional labor as, yeah, I just do something to like bring some specific emotions to others and that's it. But it goes way beyond that. So there is this whole pathway of, here's the definition, the management of feelings and acts of balancing the inner tension of oneself in order to display a publicly observable body language or expression, and thereby influencing others' emotions. So it actually, the actual definition is actually goes first from inwards. You manage your own feeling, you feel a certain way, and then thereby you can publicly display a certain expressions or say certain things or body language in order to influence others' emotions. And I observed so many of these aspects in my research, because as EJ mentioned, there are a lot of clients who come to these places or virtually for some sort of desire feeling, for some sort of sexual needs, one can say, or for some sort of romance. And what these hostesses or live streamers do is that they first need to manage their inner tension, which might mean a feeling of disgust, a feeling of despise, a feeling of discomfort because they were being sexualized, right? Even though the line of work is not per se sexual. In order to display some interest towards that client, some attention towards that client, smiling and so on. So there's like a long pathway in this so-called emotional labor. So yeah, I think this is something that we can can observe on workers in this line of work. This is one aspect. So, for example, I could give another quote to show. This is a short one. One of my interviewees said, "You basically have to have a good time." So I think this quote says a lot about what I just tried to describe. You need to have a good time in order to bring that good time to others, so to speak. So yeah, this is one aspect.
I still want to quickly deal with like the microphone situation. I'm kind of wondering if maybe you move a bit towards like.
Is my words clear, or do you think there is something wrong about this mic?
I think there was like some echoing, but I don't know.
I'll turn it down. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it's better.
Could also be because we're here, so we heard a different. We can just all ask the audience.
Okay.
Maybe
Can
we
you
just
like?
try swapping mics and see.
Okay.
Use on the spheres.
And speak now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's way better.
Yeah. It's much more clear. Okay, then let's do that. Thanks. Yeah, so like want to continue with this topic because I think like both of you have mentioned no matter it's like a virtual space or non-virtual one, there's a lot of like this kind of like laboring and a lot of like this kind of emotional management, if you can put it that way. I think what I'm wondering is like sort of then how do these people they set their boundaries at work, or like how do they kind of, no matter you call it like self-care or it's just some sort of self-preservation, how do they do that? And yeah, I wonder if EJ want to answer this first.
So I can share two. So for the call companions, it's although you have to like have calls, receiving calls at any time, but it's easier to set boundary because you only work during the calls, and because the call is charged by minutes, so it's really clear like fixed price. And once the call ends, your work ends. But for live streamer, it's more complicated because as a live streamer, you want to give this feeling of you kind of are friends, so that you need to show up regularly. So you need to go stream regularly, and yeah, and also you kind of have to maintain this relationship with your audience through sometimes replying their chats or. Yeah, so everyone sets different kind of boundaries. There are people really have a persona, like live streamer persona, so they will have say that they live in a different city and they are in a different age than actually is. Or some people, they really don't give context outside of the platform, and some will create this Instagram accounts for sharing a bit of the personal life with the audience to influence them a bit, like the friends. And some reply the audience, or only reply the potential donators. And yeah, so they set different kinds of boundaries with the audience.
How will you like in order? How do the hostess actually sort of protect itself, if you can put it that way?
So they do actually have a lot of strategies. Maybe before I dive into how exactly they set boundaries for their, let's say, mental health, I first can share actually like at the first place how this blur of boundary had so many hidden costs, right? Because in this line of work, there are a lot of basically hidden costs that are not really in public discourses. I can just, we were talking about emotional labor. And of course, as you can mention, in this line of work, we also have a lot of aesthetics labor. And for example, I have one interviewee who told me she actually, like, just from her personal preference and identity, she hates long hair. but she grew long hair because, as you can imagine, this is what could attract more clients. And what I'm trying to point out here is this line of aesthetics works, for example, it goes on 24 hours. So if you imagine being a hostess is, okay, of course you do aesthetics labor, but it's not it's not a temporary presentation of aesthetics during the work hour. It's actually carried 24 hours. It kind of infiltrates into your private life. So there are many, many other examples about this blur of private and work life in this line of work. And there are many, many hidden costs on this. So for example, you can compare this kind of informal labor, for example, with formal labor. What is also lacking is in a formal job, you have usually an onboarding process, right? And I have one interviewee who told me when she just got into this line of work, she, after her first shift the next day, she woke up and said to herself, wow, this is how it feels this is how a hangover feels like. So it's something that you just got thrown into without any sort of preparation, any sort of protection. And I think also then a lot of hidden cost is, I can also show you one example, like another interviewee. She expressed and described this work as similar to a frontline worker. Now, when we think about frontline worker, what does that mean? It is that you deal with raw material, right? And in this line of work, what is the raw material you're dealing with? Is that unprocessed emotional outbursts from clients. These clients, they have a public persona in their normal life, daily life, under the daylight, and they have a total different approach, unprocessed emotions, unprocessed trauma, as one could say, and they let all those things out in the nighttime. So I think this is also maybe similar to those, the line of work in a live streamer, because they kind of have this separation between the daylight time and the night time, and all these raw material, unprocessed emotions are addressed here, are processed here, are let out here on these women, these hostesses. So a lot of hidden costs regarding this blur of boundary. And yeah, sorry if I'm drifting away a little bit, I just want to share, because this is very interesting, the data I found in the interviewee's words, how there are so many hidden costs that are not really thought about by the public discourse. And how they deal with boundary. One interviewee, so this one who hates long hair, eventually she was telling me that she got so depressed because her whole identity and emotions are so kind of messed up. So at some point she shaved her head and wear a wig to work. So this is her way of making some sort of cut between her true self and her work time, making a cut, between these two places or two fields, one could say. And that's.
Yeah, like maybe also following on that, would you say there's also like sort of for people who are colleagues, like people who all work in the same field, do you think there are also like certain kind of mutual support or like say like kind of solidarity or sort of way of helping each other? Because as you said, like a lot of people are kind of just thrown into this work without actually knowing much about it. And I think it's also the same for the live streamers. Yeah, do you think there's like this kind of like way of people helping each other? Maybe Ije, do you want to answer that first? Or
I can answer first.
you can follow up. Please.
You want to go first? So
yeah, I would say in this, what I observed in the interviewees' words, there's not like a very, first of all, no vicious competition because the line of work is simple. The hostesses would go into one room and kind of just like stand in a row, and the client would choose one of the hostesses that she found beautiful or whatsoever to sit next to him. So there's not much vicious competition, so to speak, and there is a lot of like emotional solidarity formulated. Now, I don't know what exactly they do to support each other, but there are a lot of things hidden in their narration. For example, they would say something like, some hostesses, they do have private sex deals with clients, but I won't judge that. So this is their words. So they really think a lot about how not to put each other into like even worse situation. They make this cut for themselves. They don't do any sexual deal, but they also explicitly express the kind of solidarity for people who actually have like extra deals with clients. And also, one of my interviewees, she's actually quite active in trying to make a more empowered narration and bring that to her fellow colleagues. So, but here there's also another thing that I really observe quite interesting is that they often try to feel the self-agency by making a comparison of their work to a more formally structured work. For example, one interviewee said, in the end, actually, we're actually like office worker. We also clock in, clock out. We have work time and non-work time. So, welcome. And so there is this constant effort to like stress self-agency by comparing their job to a formal like office job. Like, oh, it's also like 9 to 5 office work and so on. I find this very interesting because they were saying this to try to empower themselves as if somehow the formally structured job is more productive, more like a real job. Whereas, well, as we already mentioned, in this line of work, there are way more energy costs, there are way more hidden costs, there are way more, you can say it's way more exhausting and way more difficult, one could say. So I think it's a little bit drifting away from the question of solidarity, but this is like, they talk to each other this way, you know, like, just imagine your job as a formally structured job, just like any other job, clock in, clock out, but essentially, it is more difficult. So I find it interesting how they try to empower themselves with these narrations, while, yeah, the thing is actually more. They are doing more, so to speak. So I think this is one thing that I just wanted to share, which is interesting that I observed in my interviewees' narrations.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's definitely really interesting, and also to really see, especially this kind of, like kind of the narrative they give to themselves, and maybe also to their friends and their like families. But at the same time, there's this discrepancy, like with their experience actually, and how they feel, then actually how they talk to themselves or talk to others. So I think that's like it's a really interesting observation. I think maybe like now I would actually be interested in to know who are actually profiting from it, because we're talking about a lot of all these people working in the front line, but there are a lot of things behind, there are a lot of people behind. Like basically this is a whole industry and it's very profitable. So I think maybe like the question also, especially like for the live streaming service and like the voice code, like how do you see like their design, and also like sort of how does this business models work?
So I can first add something about the solidarities between the workers and the workers. As a voice call or pay call chat companions, they're mostly like solo workers. So you have contracts with the platforms, and maybe you can see this Uber driver, you almost work solo. But in the live stream, it's also like this. Also, the platform leads to like list of live streams you can enter and hear or see. Seems like a bit competitive between those solo workers, but because it's a live stream room, it's a group and social interactions happening. So some of the live streamers, they also go into the other live stream rooms to interact with so their colleagues, you can say it like this. So there are some friendship developing underneath the structures. And also want to add something interesting about the aesthetic labor, because a lot of my interviewees, they switch from video live stream to voice live stream because they want to avoid the aesthetic labor, because you really have to do a lot of aesthetic labor to go on a video stream. You have to have makeup, your hair done, also maybe your nails done, and then you have to have good dress. Also your environment as your background, you also have to take care of. But in the voice live stream, you're only streaming your voice, so you don't need to do all the jobs, all the work. But still in the voice live stream, you performance with your voice. So everyone's doing in a different extent, but you sometimes have to act a bit cute or talk a bit flirty, and also, it's also a performance. It's also not without labor. And about the structure, I would say it's not only the female workers is profiting from this live stream industry, because so according to my research, how they share the profit is like 70 to 90% for the platform and 30% to 10% to live streamers. So live streamers, they actually doing this work, but they receive less profit. Also, sometimes in between the platform and the live stream, there's streamer agency. So they will take from the share of the live streamers. And so it's a whole structure. And also, if the industry is more complex, for maybe in China, there's a lot of this so-called outsourced operation companies who is working with the live streamers, which means so live streamers doing streaming, and the outsourced operation company or outsourced operation guys, they will help you to interact with your audience or your potential donors outside of the stream. So they would chat with your potential donors in the name of the live streamer. So they would like to let you feel like, oh, she spent so many time with me, talking with me, chatting with me. Maybe she also have feelings for me. That's why she's spending time on me. And then they would, so to say, cultivated the fans to let them fall in love in order to donate more money, to send more gifts during the live stream. And most of the live streamers think the healthiest way to earn donations is that you really appreciate the company of the live streamer, appreciate the time she accompanied you, and appreciate her talents and personality and so on. But the easiest way to get the most donations is to that people fall in love with you. And it's not only the live streamers doing this whole bunch of people beside the structures helping this, like outsourced operation company. And interesting enough or fair enough, the most people doing these operations are male, because they know how the audience wants and how they think. So very interesting.
Yeah, you already mentioned it in the beginning, right? Like you talk about customers and also the owner of the industry. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I think I go back to like the very beginning when I mentioned this is a venue. So the Hostess Club is a venue where a lot of businessmen go to network after work and to potentially formulate some sort of business partnership with each other, right? So in my research, I have used this sociological term relational labor. So that's like, we now cover emotional labor, aesthetics labor, but there is one more called relational labor, which means the labor that is done to foster not just the relations between you and others, but also the relations between others and others, right? So I think in the hostess industry, for example, one can imagine the relational labor the hostesses are doing for their clients with another clients, right? So often I think the public discourse see the hostesses as just some kind of commodified companionship. So they're just a companionship as a commodity sitting there, be pretty as in the beginning mentioned. But there's more. This whole environment creation, if the group of clients are in a very high mood and the hostesses are actually essentially the most important actors in sustaining that environment, sustaining that vibe for this whole occasion for their clients. So this environment creation is something that makes possible the business deals to happen. And this relational labor that the hostess do for the businessman, and therefore the business deals that are formulated there might mean millions or something like that. All these so-called surplus value go and profit to the businessman, obviously. So I try to, in my research, point out this kind of discrepancy between the public discourse of commodified companionship simply as an agentless being there, sitting there, versus the emotional labor, relational labor that creates that environment that foster a business partnership and thereby generating a lot of capitals and profits to those men predominantly. So I think, yeah, this is something that I really observed in my research.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, like sort of as mentioning about like the public discourse, I think in addition to easy money, which you can say it is still in somehow maybe a bit more neutral way describing this, or even we look at like sort of certain researchers, they always look at it as more like a business model. Like there is actually a lot of shame came with it, right? Like sort of how people think about the medicine in a virtual space or like an on-site in-person job. It's a lot about sort of, yeah, like people who work in this line, they could not really put these things on the CV. They could not really publicly tell people, oh, what I do in a networking event or like to people they don't know. It's basically a job which are so, like, they are the jobs which are very essential, but they are like much, sort of come with much more shame. So I think that's also like something maybe interesting to kind of explore more on it. Like, how do they deal with it? And also, how do you think, like, sort of with this public discourse, how should we sort of perceive that? Yeah.
Is my question to me?
Yeah, to you first.
Yeah, so I think on this public discourse, we already covered the easy money discourse, so it's kind of, in my opinion, not neutral, but somehow neutral, and there's of course this very negative discourse from the clients and from public. So something like a shame, like so here is also one interviewee. She said, yeah, some of these clients, they even said something like, we hostesses, we are just some women who crave for material things, superficial, not willing to enter the normal societal system, referring to the normal job. And on the other hand, as I already mentioned, as we see, the hostesses industries are actually fundamentally the base of this whole patriarchal business operation. So what does this kind of mean then with the normal societal system? So I think it's quite interesting, this contradiction once again, how people have shaming discourses on certain jobs while simultaneously make use of their labor to sustain this operation of this whole business world. So I think this is also, well, when I was doing this research, I really find some similarity between this whole thing and for example, some global south, like Southeast Asian people going to Scandinavian countries to perform some sort of care labor, right? They go and become nannies and so on. There are always this kind of negative discourse talking about these women, they are here and they make so much money than they could in their countries. It's almost like as if they are taking advantage of the system. So there is always shame on the people who actually are providing the labor that are really extremely utilized while simultaneously not given respect or credit. So I think this logic is so applicable for me. Like this is hostess industry is just like, for me in my research, it's just one example. It's the background logic of this public discourse versus the lived experience the labor provided. That is very intriguing for me, how applicable it can be to so many other sectors. So yeah, that's.
Me too.
So there, maybe I want to add first about the material perspective on the live streamers, because also platforms it's viewing the live streamers like in this way, because they often hold like events to foster the donations, like competitions. And if you are the first on the chart, you receive the most donations, you can get extra, like you can get for example, a bag, and you can get lipsticks instead of microphones for live streaming. Yeah, so it's also how the platforms see the live streamers in this way. And shame from the others, also internalized shame from the workers themselves. Most of the people, they won't tell their friends they are doing this job. Yeah, but also there are some live streamers that do it in opposite way. They just don't operate this like they only really have this interactions like friends with their audience. So they would also tell their friends that they are doing it, and their friends come into the live stream, or one of my interviewees, her mom also come to her live stream, but it's really like she's not playing this flirting, and she's almost like having jokes and talking with the audience, really like friends. Yeah, so there are different strategies to deal with the shame.
Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting, and also like, yeah, thanks a lot for also covering a lot of aspects of like both industry. I think like maybe this would be sort of the last question. Would be like, yeah, maybe a bit about what is like your motivation of doing this research and doing this topic, and maybe also what you will wish the audience to bring back, like as a summary. Maybe we can start with Ije.
So my message is, if you understand Mandarin, you can come to hear my podcast. And also I'll have a show in Bremen at the end of November to the end of January. So also welcome to Bremen, it's not so far away. And the other message is that like this kind of something economy, like loneliness economy, people always try to see from the perspective of economy perspective, or from the customer perspective, like male perspective. But I think it's also really important to hear from the workers, from the female workers side. So that's kind of my biggest motivation to do this research.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think mine is a little bit like from a little bit all different aspects, but I would say in the very beginning I was just thinking to myself, I think a lot of public discourses are actually always one-sided, right? It's always the so-called patriarchal discourses that put these women as either morally deviant, or some clients, according to my interviews, they even see these women as their charity case, as you can imagine. They often go and consume in the club, and they think they're bringing a lot of money to the women, so they feel that they are the heroes saving the beauties. And these both line of discourse is always from the men towards the women. It's always like one-sided. And my original idea is to kind of reverse that, right? As I was mentioning, well, is it really that the hero is saving the beauty with his money, or is it actually the women saving the man with a place for his emotional outlet that probably sustain his emotional well-being, let's say? This is just an example. With the whole shame discourses, it's the same thing. While it's always one-sided to see how morally deviant these women are, that who is unwilling, according to the clients, unwilling to enter the societal system. Why don't we think about how the societal system is sustained at the first place by this hidden and uncredited and despised labor of these women? So for me, it's more this idea of like to reverse these discourses, to really see from these women's lived experience, and to think of an alternative, how the discourses by default is one-sided, is biased. So that's, yeah, one of my motivations.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Okay, yes. Yeah, so we are basically at the end of this panel, and like we'd be very also curious about what maybe like you have now on your mind about this topic, and also maybe like the questions you have for our panelists. We also want to stress that like the motivation of organizing this is not just about like kind of filling certain people's curiosity of like a job I have never heard of, or like sort of this kind of just have like sort of only about the curiosity things. We actually want to talk about this broader topic about patriotic, about how women are doing the emotional labor in different kind of fields. And this is of course is like one very vivid examples we're demonstrating here. So like it would be also interesting to hear from you, no matter like the society you're in or like the circles you are in, what are some similarities there? What are like the things you feel you could relate to? So like feel free to share and also to ask questions. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for this panel talk. Yeah, I think this discourse is very much needed. I'm also doing some research on comfort women in US military bases in Asia. And I think that there are a lot of relevance and a lot of similarities between these comfort women and women in the hostess industry, and also in the discourse learning economy. And so just a little question, I think, for the hostess, like do they do they do that job like full time to support their livelihoods, or like do they have like other jobs, other like side jobs, and I'm quite questioning their age range. Like, do they do that until they are old?
I think just first about the age range, it ranged from 18 to, I would say, 35. But 35 is, according to my interviews, the maximum. So it ranged from, it's quite a big range. And your another question, if why, so basically your question is why they came to this industry in the first place, or like, do they do this full time? Do they do this to sustain their livelihood? Again, I only have the base according to my interviews, but it sounds like most of the time they have a particular reason. So it's not that they just wake up one day and think of this as their profession or their job to just go into, but rather it's often time that there is an emergency time where they need some quick money. So, for example, one hostess is not my interviewee, but according to my interviewee, she has 3 kids to take care of, but she doesn't have like a job that can earn sufficient money to sustain the kids. The other one, she was only 18 when she entered the industry. Now she's 25. She was also from a humble family, and she started to have this idea of trying to invest her money into like stock and stuff. So she has this whole idea of like trying to be financially free. So this is like the start of her whole plan to have like a huge amount of saving first, and then to be a master in investment, and then to be financially. So there is always a financial reason that one can say, again, it's under the influence of what is perceived as needed and what is perceived as urgent. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Can I have a follow-up? So also just as a follow-up, are all of your interviewees Taiwanese nationalities, or do they have like any immigrant background?
They're all Taiwanese. Yeah, I thought about this actually when I was doing my research on intersectionality, if I can find someone who's from a different country. But yeah, this is not really very easy to find. Not easy to find these interviewees already at the first place. So it's kind of a snowballing sampling. So it's not really included, unfortunately.
I actually also wonder if EJ want to also answer these questions about like, the age and also the reasons.
I would say 20 to maybe also 35. A lot of live streamers or companions that really fake their age on the platform, so they don't yeah, and also about the nationalities. So I think they're mostly like Mandarin speaking. So my research on the platforms of Chinese speaking platforms. So a lot of nationalities, for example, from Hong Kong, China, and then Malaysia, Singapore, the mainly Chinese speaking area.
Do we have more questions? I feel some people are raising hands. Yes, please.
Thank you for sharing this topic. So as discussed, these women, they're selling love and also attention to their clients and audience, which I think is similar to what we actually do in a real life, like romance relationship. So I was wondering, so how does this work affect their private relationship outside their work? So can they just go and start a relationship without hesitation, or do they have specific concerns?
No, they cannot that easily manage their relationship in normal life, as you can imagine. And as a matter of fact, a lot of these hostesses, at some point, if they're actually in these industries for years, at some point they got into a relationship with one of the clients. This is very, very common. And yeah, as I was trying to describe in the beginning, this whole emotional work being very inward, very, in the words of some feminist scholars, very embodied experience. So I think, yeah, there is always difficulties in managing their personal life because, well, if you imagine this emotional labor being making yourself feel something in order to display something, then you already did something to yourself inward. So that's probably one of the explanations why this happens so much, that they fall in love with the clients, or they become, yeah, they find themselves in a relationship with the clients. Yeah, other than that, I think one interviewee also mentioned that it is difficult for her to then view her personal relations in a non-transactional way at some point, because for her then all of these becomes a very transactional thing. So when she at some point realized that she's doing this emotional labor or even sexual labor to her boyfriend, let's say, it becomes a little bit blurred how she can manage herself in this regard, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
So actually some of the live streamers, they have, maybe they met someone on the platform during the live stream with their audience, listeners, or like platform users, not really have to be her audience. So because it's actually a virtual third place, so a virtual place to hang around. So you meet people and sometimes you would fall in love, or you would make friends on the platforms. And for the, maybe it's not so extreme like Hostess actually, but yeah, you interact with a lot of men with different motivations towards you, would naturally affect you a bit. Yeah.
I think there was a question behind hers. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the presentations. And loneliness is a really big problem also in German society. I was thinking that it seems that the commercialization of loneliness is one of the core problems. And are there any alternatives to alternative services for people that experience loneliness, like voluntary jobs, with a different framework, not a sexual framework?
Yeah, who wants to start with how do you think about it?
So for example, after or during the pandemic, so really you have social distance, for instance, in real life. So you have less face-to-face interactions with people, and the problem of loneliness is increasing. And so I think you hang out with people during so mediated interactive, like through screens or through devices. It's actually a way to help you to eliminate your loneliness. But if it's still with the some money inside, like you have economy perspective inside, it's become really complicated. But if you only so for example, on the live stream platforms, they're not only live streamers who has contract with the platforms, they're also like platform users. They just go streaming from their own motivations. Like they want to interact with people online. Then you will also meet some people so it's a whole process not dealing with money. Then it's easier. Also, it helps you to deal with your loneliness and you meet people actually. Does it answer your question?
I think the key term in my research is value. I feel that when we look into all these labors, including emotional labor, in such a transactional context, we realize how much value and how much capacities that needs to be there, or like how much strategic thinking that is involved in this kind of labor. And I think this is only made visible when we look into this labor in such a transactional context. So I don't really have an answer to this question, but then I would really try to think about how it is the case that the whole society becomes only more and more lack of these capacities, so of the emotional capacities for each other, because I feel like this could also, now I don't have any empirical data on this, but it could be that because of the lack of crediting, the lack of value we put on these specific capacities, emotional capacities, that made it become like less and less voluntarily done, right? Like if you do not have the incentives to do these sorts of labor, and also at the first place, this kind of emotional capacities is not even seen or valued, then the whole society goes into a direction where nobody's doing this anymore. So we only see how important or how needed this kind of capacity is in such transactional context. And that's also part of why I choose this as my study subject, because I think it's so interesting how, well, only when put in a certain context do these things become visible. I don't really have a proper answer or like an actual answer to this question, but I think these are the things that we can all think about.
Yes, question.
Thank you very much for the sharing. I also do the research of gender studies at the Humboldt University. I'd like to know in this patriarchal culture, in this patriarchal context and occasion, how are female customers treated, and if business winning the especially together with businessmen in this situation, are they excluded in this club or okay?
I'm pretty sure EJ has more like different gender clients things to share. I think in Hostess clubs particularly, oftentimes, of course, they are from time to time female clients, but they are often going with their male colleagues actually. So I mentioned a lot of after work events happen in the Hostess club, and often the female clients just go with their mostly male clients together to these clubs, and also oftentimes not, because hostesses in this club are only female, so they might also choose someone to sit next to them, but it's more for like serving drinks and so on, so there's less of this companionship aspect. But I am pretty sure EJ can say a few things.
So in the live stream industry, there's also male live streamer, and actually because there are less male live streamers, they sometimes have more profit, earning more donations because the less
Competition.
competitions with the same-sex live streamer. And also in the beginning, so in Taiwan, it's like 2016 would say it's the first year of live stream because like really big platforms emerged. And at that time, so it's developing actually a bit until now. At that time, it's really a lot, like mostly women doing this live streamer. And now it's more gender inside, also like a neutral, so it's more, how to say, different kind of people doing this. But still, it's more women than.
I just recall one thing that is mentioned in my interviews. So it's not about female clients, but I just want to mention there's also actually a reverse gender host club. So not hostess club, but like host club, where the workers are males only, and then as you can imagine, most of the clients then are female. I do find a very, very interesting finding, which is actually a lot of the hostesses, they go to the host club to be the clients there. And I asked them, what is the motivation, what is the background? And they say, actually, it is just to feel the power of being served, the power of being the one whose demand is fulfilled. Because, of course, they are very lacking this feeling of power in their line of work on a daily basis. So from time to time, they go to the host club. And it's also because all these things are quite like pricey. So when they earn the money there, they can afford to go to the host club. But yeah, like psychologically, a lot of them really go there and their answers are all the same. They just somehow need to at some point also feel the power in this host club.
Yes, as I know, in Japan is also like that. The female workers, they go to the hostel club, and because there's a lot of stress in their work.
There's one more question.
There's one more question. Okay.
What works?
So yeah.
Yes, I'll make it quick. Thanks for sharing, first of all. And recently I watched a series from Taiwan. It's called 0 Day Attack. The episode 7, it's about there's a Vietnamese hostess who serves as a lower, who is a server as well, and she originally belonged to the lowest level of social power hierarchy, and however, when the Chinese invade happened, some men want to return or wish to go to Vietnam with her, and the other man actually just fell in love with her, and suddenly I feel that, or my interpretation is, her position in this hierarchy just suddenly rise. I'm not sure if my interpretation is accurate or right, but I'm just interested in Taiwanese hostess club. If the workers, they try to make the clients to fall in love with her, to make their hierarchy rise. Does that happen?
There's a question.
Yeah, do you mean like if the hostesses are trying to find some rich, powerful man to marry to,
or just in the business, in the karaoke, they just try to create this very girl-friendly atmosphere, and to try to make men really like her and to create her own status.
That I can only tell that this is something that is not heard of from what I know or from what I observe in the narratives of my interviewees. I do think it's possible that it happened that at some, if they truly fall in love with the hostesses and at some point they marry the hostess and so on, this could be one topic that their social status or suddenly rise, but not just by being their girlfriends in the hostess clubs. I think this doesn't have this kind of function. Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Your last question?
Hello. Thank you in the beginning so much for bringing this topic. I'm interested to know if you have empirical data about the reasons for loneliness and whether loneliness is a gender-related topic at all. Is there any cultural aspects that it's in specific countries? Is the economy playing a role? And why are men are like the main customers of this business?
Yeah, like, so first is I saw like there's still 5 minutes for more questions. I hope we can still do that. Yeah, but like I think it would be kind of interesting to also listen to what you just think about it. But yeah, like I say, my thought is, woman is better at asking or fulfill their emotional sort of needs with like companionship and friends and stuff. But I think a lot of men are socialized in a way which they were not really able to reach out to people around them, and then it's kind of how sort of support the industry also to grow. But yeah, like maybe you want to share more?
Yeah, so I won't say men are lonelier than women, but why there's more like female workers to fulfilling the emotional needs for men is really like dealing with the patriarchal societies as well, and the whole like structures, I would say. How can I say this?
Yeah, I think I agree with Lingrong on the aspects of that in like women and men are socialized in a different way. And I think specifically in Taiwan, really, especially now things are slowly changing, but still it's predominantly the case that men, they are socialized and grow up and formulated this kind of detachment from their emotional existence, and that's the word I use in my research as well. They are socialized to become emotionally detached from themselves, and also they are predominantly the typical case of how there's always a separate public persona and private self. And I think I can mention a lot of these clients describe the hostess bar as some sort of dream-like sweet place or sweet dream-like place. And then my question is this more the dream and their public persona is the reality, or is it just that the fact that they have the separation between public persona and then their emotional self is already somewhat, a result of this socialization of detachment from emotion. So this is happening more to men, especially in this, in the case of these men who visit the hostess clubs.
Not a question, but an opinion. I think the women are more emotional or sympathetic. What is that now? English,
Sympathetic.
Yeah. It's not. I think it's only expectation of the patriarchal society, but not the nature of women. This is my opinion.
From just to add on that, from my perspective, I usually don't really look into whether this is an expectation or is a result of the nature, but as a matter of fact, if it is the case that women are doing more of this labor, then of course women suffer more from these labors not being valued. So for me, That would be my stand.
Yeah. Is there any one more questions people really feel to ask? It's like the last call. Okay, no, then, yeah, I wish to really thank our panelists today, EJ and Yining, and yeah, please give them And very importantly, also our volunteers, basically all the people you see standing there, and also our volunteers for the camera. So thank you.